Shalom. So we are waiting for Andrea and her husband. They are just logging in as we speak. Feel free to put up questions in the chat. I have no clue what Gregory means by this. Ha ha ha, he, shifty 5, shiggity shiggity schwa. All I want is somebody finish it. I have no clue. We Andrea is on her way. I hope we have fewer technical problems than we did with Karen. I'm sure we will. Well, we might have more problems than I thought. But it'll be good. I'm sure it'll be good. I made some changes to my microphone, so if the sound is better or worse, do let me know. We should be getting started any second now. There they are.
Hi. Oh no. Oh, there. I'm like, do we have to be like this?
No. If you've never used StreamYard before, I love it, and it's really easy to use and really powerful. Okay, so I highly recommend it. Okay. Yeah, I highly recommend it. It lets you do all kinds of weird stuff like this and put up screens and.
Okay, I've never actually done a live stream with someone else, so like, okay, this is a good idea for me.
Yeah. So I've become like a StreamYard evangelist. So this is actually a comment somebody left on YouTube in the live stream. So Greg, you know Gregory, right? He comes on he what does he call himself on Bridges of Meaning? Saint Greg or something?
Maybe. I am not great with the names. If people go on video, I know them by their faces, you know.
Well, I have no clue what he's trying to say here.
Seems like he's just excited that we're live.
Might be. Hello, Josh. I've never met you before.
Mr. Bangs.
And I'm clearly lacking that. It's receding by the day. So
also, like,
I have you beat by a lot.
Yeah, watch what you say, hun.
Yes.
No, we also kind of match. We didn't mean to.
Oh wow.
Oh, sure. I believe you. You always match everything.
I didn't mean it.
This was unintentional. She didn't really know what I was wearing, so.
I see.
Yeah.
So, Josh, how does it feel to be Mr. Andrea with the bangs?
It feels pretty good. Yeah, I've got like, I don't know, it's been great. Yeah, really nice.
Okay.
Andrew's pretty, you
Pretty,
know,
right? Just pretty?
yeah, that too. Yeah. But no, she's a very interesting, dynamic person who really likes to kind of explore a lot of different topics. And as you guys probably know, goes way into depth on things. And most of the discussions we have, they're way over my head. I do what I can.
He's a computer scientist.
Okay.
But I mean, it's a different type of science.
Well, yeah, and I graduated recently, and so for me, my head's been in like books and math for the last 4 years, whereas shifting to discussions on bridges it's not something I'm really familiar with, but it's been a lot of fun just listening in, and she brings up stuff all the time, and yeah, it's really good to talk about that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's good.
So are you two going to Thunder Bay or no?
No, it's too far because we're in Alberta.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's basically above Montana. So
okay.
Thunder
I thought
Bay,
it's all Canuckistan. I mean, how big is Canada after all?
it's like the second largest country.
Right.
So it's like Thunder Bay is so random. Like you have to fly into Toronto and then from Toronto get up to Thunder Bay.
Mm.
So it's just not easy. If it was in Vancouver, yes. No problem.
So I will definitely tell Catherine you hate her and don't want to see her.
Oh, okay. So I wish, but actually, Jacob, so Josh and I are leaving in a few days. We're going to visit Cassidy and Fairdy and Billy and Jake. So we're going first to visit Billy and Jake. Billy is she does the games crew. When we used to do games a lot, you know. And Jake is her husband, and so we're going there to meet them in Cambridge, and then we're going down over for a couple of days to visit Cassidy and Fairdy. And mind you, we thought of going to the Germany meetup, and Josh was okay with it because I was worried because I'm like, but you don't know the people, and Josh was like, I'm fine to just like meander around Berlin. Like he would have been fine too.
Doesn't that sound interesting though? Like the chance to
yeah.
city that you don't know very well. To me, that sounds kind of cool.
So he was fine with it. Like I used him as an excuse initially, but I also was like, this is supposed to be our trip of, oh, you've graduated after 4 years of school and like lots of sacrifices of time, and it was supposed to be like our trip.
Right.
So I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't do like a thing where I go away and you go somewhere else and we meet up at the end. So next year maybe, or the next couple of years.
Anytime I ask a question that you don't want to talk about, just ignore it. But are you taking the kids?
Okay, that'll be no problem.
Some people don't like talking about their kids online, so I don't know if you guys.
I don't mind I don't show pictures of them.
Okay, but are you taking the kids with you on the trip or no?
No.
No way.
Yeah, this will be our first trip, I think, without kids. Right?
And in a long time, we went when the older two were little, and I was pregnant with the youngest. But,
right.
But that was only for a few days. We went to New York for a few days, and I was just pregnant, and we only had the two. And our oldest has type 1 diabetes, actually. So this was the last time we went somewhere was before he had diabetes, and so now he has it, but they have technology that allows it to be easier to monitor like glucose levels, and so we've prepped his mom. So.
May I ask approximate ages of the kids so we know what we're talking about?
Yep, 6, 8, and 10.
And all boys. All boys.
Okay, so you guys have been married at least 4 years.
Yep, definitely. Greater than 4. Yep. We've been married 12 and a half. Over 12 and a half years.
12 and a half. To be specific.
And I heard you guys met at Bible study.
Yeah, young church, young adults, you know. Like, I guess Bible study-ish for the youngins.
To be fair, that was not our intent, even though a lot of people go thinking that was our intent when we tell them that we met there, because it's like, oh yeah, that's where you meet your future missus or future.
What's wrong with that? You're making it sound like it's something bad to do.
No, I'm not. I just like to clear the air by saying that was not why I was there.
He wasn't on the prowl.
I was not. It's not on the
Well,
prowl.
I highly recommend all guys on the prowl to actually go and meet women at church.
And have fun, just explaining that, like, after you caught them, like, I only came here to meet.
Just to meet you. Yeah.
Hey, it's a beautiful thing for a man to go to church to meet his wife.
If he really honestly
is godly home.
Okay.
It is, right. It's not a bad way to meet significant.
But it's nice if you also want to like improve your spiritual life alongside of meeting your spouse.
Look, if you're just looking to score, the last place you're going to go is a Bible study.
It's true. You're right. It's true. There are some.
I mean,
I've never heard it that way, but you're right. It's true.
Yeah. If you're just looking to score, bad idea to go to a Bible study.
I'm on the prowl for a long-term relationship resulting in marriage.
That's got to be like on the lowest rung of the ladder for likelihood of getting, anywhere. So
yeah. Most people at Bible study are not up for one night stand. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, I can confirm.
So, okay. Now, one of the most interesting things to me about Andrea and knowing her has been she is so incredibly effeminate. And from everything she tells me, like, grew up in a house full of women, and now she's living in a house full of men.
Yeah.
Like, how is that? How is it living with somebody who, like Andrea, like has tea parties and like wears these fashionable things that like I've never seen most people do?
This unique lady.
It's a good question. I think it balances us out quite well. Like you said in the question, there's a lot of masculinity floating around and a lot of
hyper masculine.
Right. There's a lot of aggression in the house.
I'm sorry, Josh is so even though. Like, he's the kind of guy that I know that it sounds like I'm joking, like he's like, oh yeah, super hyper masculine, but in the ways that is the like, oh, look at that strong stoicism that you want to see.
Proper masculinity, actual masculinity, not what people call toxic masculinity.
Yeah, not the Rambo kind.
Right. Yeah.
So go on.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
No, it's all right. So yeah, she does a really good job at kind of balancing that out with the boys and keeping them in line, but also like introducing them to different ways of thinking and sort of more of a cerebral answer to things rather than like let's just hit each other and throw stuff at each other. Whereas for me, I'm like, all right, my initial instinct is, all right, split up, you over there, and come apologize to each other in 5 minutes or something. Whereas with her, she's like, all right, let's talk this out. And she introduced me to that as well, like sitting aside and talking them through what they were thinking and what they felt, and sort of reasoning out, well, why did you act that way? And maybe saying something like, oh, well, maybe there's a better way of doing that. So she really brings that sort of side to parenting and just showing the boys kind of balance. So no, it's good. She holds her own. She doesn't get overwhelmed, I don't think, or anything.
Tell how I helped you with the treehouse.
What do you mean?
You know how I helped lift it?
Oh, yeah.
Now I just said the whole thing.
So I was actually going to call. We've been having this saga of a treehouse built in our backyard for the last, I think it's been over 2 months, right, at this point? Yeah. So we're finally nearing the end stages. We had difficulties with the neighbors, and they thought it was too big, and so I had to tear it down and rebuild a smaller one. anyway, we were moving the smaller one into place, and it's not light. Like it's about, I think when we lifted it, it was over 500 pounds.
I didn't know that.
And so I was going to call my dad, who lives just down the street. I was going to ask him to come help me move it. And I just said to Andrea, like, hey, do you want to give this a shot? And
no, you didn't. I offered because you were like, oh yeah, I guess I'll move it by myself. And I was like, well, I have I have legs.
Yeah, that's right. So, and you're only, it's at the perfect height where you can kind of hold your arms like straight out, and you're only lifting it like, this high.
I use my legs.
So, and you're using your legs. So you're only at the top bit of the bend in your knee. So it's like the most powerful part. So I didn't think, like, I thought, oh, well, we could try. And so, we moved it. We were able to get it over there. So yeah, it was impressive. I was impressed. I didn't expect that to work out, but it worked out really well. So she's a lot stronger than she looks.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Well, I mean, it wasn't my arms; it was my legs. So.
Right. No, she.
So you guys know about the peach meme that's been going all over Twitter?
I don't.
I actually don't.
No, I don't know that meme.
Oh, you didn't hear about this? Okay, so there's this woman who's a cartoonist, and she.
Yes. Oh, sorry. It just the husband bashing lady and
shoot.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about it, Andrea and Josh, because so this woman she made cartoons, and apparently she's been making them for a long time, and then the internet suddenly took notice of them, and like the entirety of the world was like, wow, you treat your husband horribly because of the things that she was saying about.
I told you about it.
Maybe.
I replied by writing some nice things about my own husband.
So you actually commented on it?
I did. I forgot about it.
I'm not on Twitter anymore. I tweeted out that Ellen Page is a woman, and I'm no longer have to worry about Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize what this thing was called. Like, I knew these comics, and I didn't realize that the name. Like, I do remember the one, and there is one with a peach and blah blah blah. So I do remember. So what it is there's a lady who looks. It shows like as it points to like my thoughts.
I might be able to pull it up.
Okay. And so she's like, oh, this is the nicest, most ripe, beautiful peach ever. The kids love peaches. I'm going to save it for them. Okay. And then the next one is the husband, and he's like, oh, what a ripe, beautiful peach. I love peaches. I'm going to eat this last peach because it looks delicious. Okay. Yum, yum, And the point is the idea is like, look how much better the wife is. And you just are supposed to think this, like, wow, she's so sacrificial, and like, oh, that husband's so selfish. Look how selfish men naturally are. Okay. Anyways, we've got it. Okay, so here it is.
Yeah, so this is the husband peach. Like, this is one of her cartoons, and they saw it and they're like, okay, she makes this rule in her mind, right? And like the entirety of the internet felt sorry for her husband.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even the guys who are on the quite far left, like some people I follow, they were like, okay now. like they're like, I'm a feminist, but
yeah. Gotcha.
So
I was wondering if there was any sort of that similar thing between, like, because you have this wife who has like this podcast where she's discussing life. Like, do you ever feel like your life is kind of either being opened up or misrepresented as people see, like, see it through Andrea with the bangs as opposed to Andrea, your wife? Does that make any sense as a question?
Yes, so one of our children, this like decided to come in and we're shooing him away.
I lost my attention for a little bit.
Sorry.
I think
he's welcome to join the stream if you want.
Yeah, and I see that's I don't like them getting their faces unless it's like if it's not recorded, I don't care. But that's anyways.
So the question was, is there any sort of if I understand it, what was the question one more time? Sorry.
Is your wife's fame and her podcast in any way? No, you're a pretty big name in at least in our corner of the internet.
Okay, I'll receive it.
Like do you feel like there's some sort of like open window into your life through your wife having so many subscribers and people listening to her and stuff like that?
It's a good question. It's never really dawned on me, to be honest. I think we've had one, I want to say IRL, one real life scenario where someone recognized her but was intimidated to approach her. This was at our local garden center, wasn't it?
Yeah, they just wrote me a message on Discord.
We found out later.
Yeah.
That's really the only time I've ever really run into anyone sort of being awestruck. I'm awestruck every day.
No, but you. Thanks, hon.
So, but
but you do you feel like your life is being invaded? Like,
oh no,
and you didn't say it that way. I'm kind of.
No, like I think she's done a really good job at keeping sort of the YouTube life separate from the personal life. I don't really think that she's had the two kind of mixed too much in either way. So
on Bridges of Meaning, there was a little bit of a backlash when she tweeted out about your vasectomy.
Cool.
There were a lot of guys who were like,
I didn't know that. I didn't know. Look at me.
Do tell. I had no idea. What was the backlash?
Wait, did I tell you that I tweeted out about it? Oops. But he doesn't care about things like that.
Yeah. I'm curious. What was the backlash?
No, I mean there were people like she's tweeting out about his vasectomy. It was like I think people felt a few people. It was a small little discussion. I thought you were there when we had the discussion about like, did you ask him before you tweeted out that he's having a vasectomy?
She knows me well enough to know that doesn't even blip on my radar. If she was to tweet about something like that. So, it doesn't even bother me in the slightest, to be honest.
I forgot that I may have been there, but I actually have forgotten that.
And I mean,
I know I tweeted about it, but I don't remember that we talked about it on Bridges.
I think even talking like amongst my friend group, it's like we talk about that kind of stuff pretty openly. It's not like some weird faux pas or something that keep hush hush about. It's something that I don't know. What'd you do last weekend? Oh, I got a vasectomy. Oh, how'd it go? It went pretty good. Feeling all right, and move on. I don't know. To me, it doesn't even register. I know for some people and in some cultures, that's like, whoa, what are you doing? You can't talk about that stuff. That's it gives them the heebie-jeebies. But for me, it just doesn't register at all. So I didn't even know, and it doesn't even bother me, to be honest. And that's
on my server, I hope he doesn't mind, but on my server, one of the guys mentioned he's getting circumcised. So it's like, I was really glad for him, and everybody else was. Obviously, he's Jewish, but like it was, he was circumcised as a baby, but he's having it redone. It's just a tiny, literal prick, because it wasn't done ritually. Yeah, it's a symbolic bloodletting.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so he was talking about it, and it's like, I can see some people getting uncomfortable about stuff like that. But really, I think partially for me, at least for circumcision, since I've been going to them since I was going to a circumcision has been a normal thing in my life ever since, every time a boy's born. So it's like, it's not as weird as I think it is for some people to talk about that stuff. So
well, and like to go back to what Josh was saying, I know that he's pretty like open about he's not very like, oh, don't like shush my private life. Like,
Right.
I mean, I'm not really talking too much about like the family anyway, unless it's like my kids said something that was funny or cute, and then those can kind of be annoying tweets anyway. So I just, like I kind of, I don't really go, I feel like I don't go too much into like what Josh is doing, unless it's like, oh, Josh graduated, or like my husband, like his second career, finally he's graduating, we're so happy, it's been a long road, yay. Like, it's usually positive things. The vasectomy one was like, okay, that's delving in, but I just know him well enough that he's not Mr. like, oh, like he's not like, how dare you, he's also, okay, I do need to mention this, he's very a lot of the time there's certain spaces that like roles that like a husband and a wife sort of occupy, and it's not quite as direct as some, like, okay, like I cook, that's a role, that's a typical female role, and I inhabit that, and that's very traditional. But when it comes to like, Josh is very he's chatty, but he's not loud. He can definitely hold a conversation with strangers. Like, he's more okay to talk with strangers than I am. I'm like, I don't know you, I don't want to try, thanks, But whereas Josh is way more friendly, I'd say, in like a low key way. But I am way more outgoing than him. I'm like the one who's like, me, look at me and the couple, it's me.
But she really just takes a minute to get going, and then once they find common ground.
Well, if there's a common ground, then yeah, we're best friends. But like, if it's rando on the street, I'm like, I don't want to. Can you take this one? And Josh is like, okay, I'll talk to the weird guy and the whatever, but anyway, so I know that in a lot of spaces, a lot of like, if the man is more outgoing, very, very typically, like the wife is a little bit quieter, and that, usually these are sort of pairs that happen. And for the two of us, Josh is very even keel. Like, there's a sort of like joke on bridges with some of my friends there that he's really good in a crisis. He's good in a crisis. So because he's really like methodical. Okay, the situation with our oldest son broke his toe, and I wasn't there. I was so glad I wasn't there.
Right. So he came up to me. We were at the water park close by our house, and I was waiting in line with one of my other sons to go down the slide, and he comes running up screaming like, my toe, my toe, my toe. And I'm like, all right, let's sit down, let's take a look. And if these were his toes, this guy was pointing this way.
So it was very broken.
It was very, very broke. And so I just know from either breaking my own toes or watching other people break theirs that you just, once it starts setting, it's like, that's how it's set. So I just sat him down, and he was still in shock and full panic. And so I just grabbed it and twisted it straight.
Wow.
I just didn't say anything. I was like, oh, that looks a little off. So I just grabbed it and twisted it over.
But put it back in the right spot.
Yeah, twisted it so it's straight and lines up with the rest of them. And then we went to the sort of the lifeguard station. They put some bandages on it, and then we went home and took him to the hospital. And what did they even do? Did they put a cast on it? No, we had a boot.
No, they suggested one of those air boot things for broken feet, but we just decided to get him. No, they actually just said a nice flat shoe.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, no. So we just got him a medical boot.
Right. He's got a big boot to protect his toes.
And they said he did a really good job. Like the medical, like also our doctor told, because they sent our doctor the x-rays.
Right.
And she complimented your setting,
your
quick thinking of setting it. I wouldn't have known what to do.
It's a typical like computer science thing. I think very linearly. So it's like, all right, well, he's screaming. Let's take a look at his foot. Oh, his toe's wrong. Okay, well, let's fix that. And then we fix that, and then we think, okay, what's next? All right, let's make sure. Let's get a bandage on him so we can get to the hospital. And then you guys take it one step at a time. And so, like it takes a lot, I guess, for me to panic. There's times I definitely have, but I think it's just because I just think kind of linearly, it just kind of works out good that way. So, yeah.
Oh, can I address? I'm sorry. Can I address
Sure.
the situation with the
Sure.
comment? Like, you may have brought it up as a segue into like, oh, and with you, Andrea, and your YouTube thing. But like, I just want to directly address the situation with the lady and the guy. So that is a stereotype that might be true for a lot of couples. However, I do think that the lady, she should not be so martyr like complexy. She can have that peach. That's okay. And it's not selfish of him to have the peach either. But if he does it every time, if with the last favorite, whatever, he could maybe stand to let others have it too. It all depends on who you are in your context. So I just needed to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember as a child, so I always save whatever I like the best to eat at last.
Yeah.
And my sister would always be like, "Oh, you're not eating that?" and grab it.
Yeah, well,
there's
like off my plate.
Context driven.
That's cold. That's cold. Yeah.
So the reason I asked you guys on as a couple was I also asked Catherine and Eamon on as a couple. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that.
Yeah, I watched some of it. Yeah.
What'd you think?
It's good. Like it was nice because like I've seen Catherine and chatted with her, but I didn't know Eamon at all, so that was kind of cool to see and also that they're both like psychologists. One is a psychologist and one's a psychotherapist, right? So that's
so Catherine, I believe, so she's Kanakistani, so I don't know the exact things up in Kanakistan, but here she's like an MFT. Yes, that's my joke name for Canada.
It sounded legit. Like, where's that?
Yeah, I was thinking Middle East.
You've never heard of Kanakistan?
No.
We're living in it, hon.
We're just too in it to hear anything outside of it. So.
Okay, so that's my little joke for Canada. So she's the equivalent of an MFT, and he has his PhD, so he's a psychologist.
Wow. So okay. Good for them.
So you were saying?
I think that's it.
What you were thinking about it? Oh, okay.
I thought that was it's more. Oh yeah, I didn't know that, and that's cool.
Oh, right. So my thing was part of going to Chicago and getting back was I thought that I agree with Paul that we need to be more of an offline and in real life community.
Mm-hmm.
And in real life, like if I were inviting you over to my house for like a dinner party or something, of course I would invite your husband. Like if we're going to sit around and play games, like why would I not invite your husband? But on the server, when we did play games, it was like nobody ever thought, oh, I should invite Andrea's husband or and to me it just seems that online we're kind of artificially separated from our spouses. Not that I have a spouse, but if I had a spouse. And it just seemed to me like the more natural way for society to work and for people to relate to each other is actually to relate with spouses as a couple. So part of having these conversations, I thought, you know what, maybe I should be like inviting people on as a couple to come and talk and be a part of the community so that we're a more complete and whole community. And also, I think people act better when they're with their spouse than they do individually.
Yeah, she can be a bit of a rogue when she's by herself, I guess.
How dare you?
Yeah, I know. This will be an offline discussion post-interview. No.
No, it's been like it's been pretty fine, but like, I mean, it depends.
I do agree. I think
it depends on if the spouse doesn't like. If your spouse like is the opposite of self-deprecating, but like the other person like deprecates you.
Right.
Like that would be like, oh no, that's not great.
Ideal.
You know, like jokes at your expense.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be good. Ideal. But if they're like, if not for me being civilized by this one,
right?
But that's you saying it to me.
Yeah, right.
Because I civilized you.
She did.
Anyway.
Yeah, she did. Definitely.
So. Anyhow, but yeah, I think it depends on how probably how solid your marriage is.
Yeah. How well you communicate in your marriage, I think, will kind of dictate how different you are.
How you are in, yeah. Because actually the thing that's there, I remember on Jerry Seinfeld had this one of his latest specials. I think maybe the latest. He's like maybe was it him? Maybe it was someone else. I can't remember who it was. Whatever comedian, and he's like, don't you just love the couples when he or she's telling a story, and then the other one's like, no, it wasn't Sunday. It was Monday. It was on Monday, not Sunday. And then they're like, was it? Yeah, it was. I was like, who cares? It's a story. Like when they're like, no, it was Mondays. We would go on Monday, hun.
Yeah.
Yeah, babe. It was,
Yes. Every little detail has to be perfect.
Yeah, it is like, that's watch out, but that's in public. There's like those little or if something goes wrong, like with our interview, if something went wrong, I think about this after watching that. I'm like, how do I act in public with little things? Say that like the sound went wrong or something. Not if I was like, hun, can you just please just figure it out. I could be kind of a jerk accidentally and be like, oh no, versus like, oh, hon, can you fix it? I don't know what to do. Just I'm faking it. I don't know how I would actually act because I've thought about it too much. But how you can. It's just how you naturally react in front of others. There's little in between things that are just sort of like, you just gotta be careful. You gotta be careful in situations, and you wanna make your partner look good.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I think of in a.
Yeah, when you try and lift your partner up rather than
you don't want to be like,
down.
no, you're not getting. Why can't you do things?
Right. Yeah. So ideally, I think you'd want to be lifting up your partner rather than pulling them down or putting them beneath you in some sort of metaphorical way. So.
And I'm taking that in a direction. Sorry, you didn't even ask. You're just like, I think people are better behaved in couples. And I'm all like, well, let me think. Anyway, so I
no, this is a real conversation we're having, and you guys are, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think she's pretty much the same on camera as she is off.
I really am.
She really is.
I really am.
I watch most of her interviews that she does and she posts on the YouTube, and I'd say most. I think I've watched a third of them.
Oh, thanks for being honest, because no, he's definitely not seen all of mine.
Some.
But you have made an effort. You've been an effort.
And from what I see, she acts the same during her interview process as she does offline.
But I am better at asking the other people in my interview about the things I'm asking because I am the interviewer. Whereas when it's us, I'm very hey, hon, I want to tell you something. And you're
that's kind of
okay, I'll listen.
Yeah, because the interviews, you only have so much time and everything's got to be fairly pointed in order to get in, ask the questions you want to ask. Whereas real life, it's well, we've got all the time.
We've got all of our lives.
Right. So, yeah, I think she's the same off camera as she is on camera. So I don't think there's.
So Josh, do you end up being her IT person or not at all?
I was in the setup, definitely. I think now, she does all her own editing, which is really impressive. She picked up Final Cut Pro, and she's more of a wizard now with Final Cut Pro than I am.
I'm okay.
Yeah, but you know way more than I do.
Well, if I have an issue, I have tried to Google things myself. One of the things just reversing a video if I wanted to have mirroring it. Yeah, I looked up how to do that and I didn't ask him, so I was I've grown. Yeah. But if there's something that I want to pull my hair out about, I'll ask him. He is he's the guy who, even though he goes like, I don't know. I'm like, but you know how to figure it out better than I do. So he does. So he's the one who's like, I know how to tinker around looking at forums, and so if I'm really like getting frustrated, like I will then go to him, and he's very good at it.
Right. So yeah, I guess I'm like the backup IT guy. Andrea is kind of her own IT guy, but I'm the support if necessary.
Yeah, I put on a pair of glasses and I'm like, I'm my own IT guy.
Yeah, grabs the lab coat and
beep 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 beep. Oh, we're such nerds. Oh, we're silly. Anyway.
You guys go together. I like it. I think
this is the most you talked on one of these.
He usually doesn't talk. How many of these have we done?
Like 2. Well, one for my channel where you were like quite silent.
Oh yeah.
And then I think we just chatted with Cassidy and Faraday last week, and it wasn't recorded. We were just talking about.
I was kind of chatty for that.
Were you more chatty for that?
I thought I was on the same plane as I am now.
For me, you're a little bit more chatty, which is nice. It's nice to hear things that are in his head.
Yeah, I'm very cerebral. I keep a lot of stuff in. I don't talk
really,
a lot.
really smart and like.
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is I'm very quiet. So, like, for example, we took a road trip recently, and her voice was hurting, so she said, "I'm gonna be a little quieter now." And I said, "All right, that's fine." And so,
and then it was silent.
And then it was silent because I'm okay with the silence, and I just kind of things rattle around up there, and I just kind of ponder life, but I don't say anything aloud. So,
but you're getting better, like right now in this interview.
There you go. Yeah. So interviews like this, bring it out a little bit.
Not to say it's bad to be like cerebral and thinking things through. It's just nice for me to know things that are in there.
Right.
Sometimes.
Right.
So going back to what I was saying about couples, I think part of the problem, which obviously isn't the case with you, is sometimes when people are getting very involved online without their spouse, it's partially like there's a selection bias because they're having problems with their spouse, and that's why they're so online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's the selection bias? Sorry, I don't know what that is.
Oh, so selection bias is sampling bias is you get different results because of how you are selecting where you are measuring.
Oh,
so because we're looking at bad behavior online, my guess is people who actually have great relationships with their spouses tend to be online a lot less than people who aren't. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And that was part of my thinking as far as like what I would like to see in the world. Like if I ran Twitter, there would actually be couples accounts as opposed to, some people share their couples accounts, but that's kind of considered weird. Like it seems to me that like if families were online as families, even to the point, like I think a lot of people have a better experience on Facebook because like my mom is on my Facebook, not so much Twitter, right? And I think that kind of tones things down because you have like a bigger social network.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think about sort of the family WhatsApp groups. Sort of you have all the sort of siblings and parents that kind of talk. Kind of reminds me of that. It's just on a bigger scale, I guess. Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's the thing about there's positives and negatives to like the masculine and the feminine both, and sometimes these energies kind of group online. you know, where you have like the rad fams, and then you have like the MGTOW guys and the incel guy, you know, like, or the whatever, though, you know, there's these,
even the trad wives, they tend to
sure,
clump as well.
So there are these, and that's not all of the problems online with different groups, but you can kind of just see, like, yes, there are some that are more conservative and some that are more liberal, but I can see these sort of groupings around like gender a little bit. And if you were a couple, and it wouldn't necessarily like fix everything, but if you were, you know, like Lord of the Flies, all boys, you know, it's sort of like Lord of the Flies online for a lot of stuff. Because women are not as confrontational, and some are, and those are the ones who are like, yes, I choose to be confrontational online, and they're choosing that. But I feel like a lot of, if there would be a sort of, and because sorry, I don't want to act like as if women would be like, oh, let's make this a little more gentle, because there's a lot of really intense women online too. But I'm thinking of the way of like the ways that like men, that whole like idea of like the men being civilized by women. So there's another side as well, but I'm just thinking about the one dynamic where you kiss that your mother with that mouth, like, you know.
Well, I mean, sorry about the ambulance going by. There's a hospital near me.
That?
Yeah, there's a hospital near me.
But you know what I mean?
Well,
like there's like a sort of dynamic that maybe the hold that back.
I understand what you mean, but I think so did you watch Jordan Peterson's discussion with Camille Paglia? This was a long time ago. This was like
long time ago. Yes, I did. Yeah, I watched that one.
And I think he was really right when he talked about like how difficult it is for men to deal with like crazy women because we can't punch them. And because like if a man is being like an all sorts of a jerk, like ultimately there is that physical threat. And I think the fact that there isn't the physical threat online sometimes allows people who are very relationally aggressive, which tends to be women. I also talked to Catherine and Eamon about this. Like, girls can be real bullies, especially relationally, in ways that boys aren't.
Yeah.
And so you get a much more toxic environment with bullying girls on social networks.
Well, and that's the other side. So I'm thinking of like the angry men, or like sexually frustrated men, or like whatever, like that, those groups. But then there's that other side, you're right, where it's like the bullying, the girls who really are the quick, like, I know how to like strip you apart one by one, you know, like whatever. Like, so that definitely exists. That's the negative side of the feminine, you know. Yeah, but like together, if you're, I mean, you could be a very hateful couple.
Yeah.
So that is true. But you could also, you know, having like, well, and bridges, you know, like we're not necessarily a bunch of families, but we do, there's more of a familial feel, friendly feel. And I do think that that's led, you know, by the way that Paul is he's quite consistent across all of the platforms that he's on, because, you know, I'm on his Twitter and we watch his YouTube, and then we see his Q&As, and I've interviewed him, and, you know, most people kind of follow him across platforms. And he's pretty like, you know, no, this is you can be mad at me, but let's leave the insults with me and not go spewing them at everyone else. You know, I can handle it, but let's calm it down, you know. And also the mods, you know, of course, like on Bridges, and we just don't do that. And I think that, and I've heard that the early internet had a sort of decorum where people would be like, oh, we don't actually do that here. Like, you're new, but we're not jerks here.
Netiquette existed. Yeah. That ended a lot after. So when I was on the early internet, which was before both of you were born, I'm kind of joking, kind of not. This was in the early 90s.
We were like born. It's just like toddlers.
Yeah.
Dial-up days.
Preschoolers. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So during that time, the internet, basically the only people on it, you had to be in college basically to really be on the internet. I remember when I went to college, my counselor said that I was the first high school student to ever email her, because like before that, only people who were in college had emails, and I had an email already, right? I was an early adopter of emails, and so there definitely was a selection bias when you had to go not just to a college, but usually like it wasn't even the community colleges and stuff that were on it. You had to basically be at a university to really get involved with the internet. And that changed dramatically when like everybody started going on the internet. So yeah, it's a very different thing. So how do you guys deal with the toxicity of the internet and your sons?
Kind of unexposed to it right now. We have
like, some rules.
You'd probably be able to speak to those better than I will. Like, for instance, like video game wise, like I don't really let them play any video games right now that are connected to the internet at all.
Yeah, so, it's all offline video games.
It's all offline stuff for right now. Like, I know at a certain point it's like, okay, well, you really gotta start introducing them. But yeah, and I think stuff like YouTube, typically like one of us will have to be around for just to watch YouTube with them. I don't know if they want to explore that. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of rules.
Well, YouTube Kids is a thing. Like, YouTube's trying to be, because there's some really weird stuff that like looked like it was for kids, but it was like weird, you know, and not like inappropriate, but just weird. And you're like, I don't need my kid watching this weird stuff, you know. And since then, I actually think that now they do have, as a YouTube content creator, I do see things like, is this for children? Yes or no? And then you have to go through all these more vetting things than you used to have to. But I don't like, okay, for example, I'm not even thinking about toxicity levels that teen boys would have to deal with. Like, we will have to get there. I'm thinking of, like, I would say toxic dopamine hits that I don't want them getting exposed to, that will eventually be a thing in other ways. But I'm thinking of unboxing videos. Like, we were just talking about this. We just had to be reminded about the rules of unboxing videos. We forgot.
Yep.
So
me as in me. So she keeps looking at me, but
no. Well,
I don't understand. Like, what exactly?
So unboxing videos are where it's just videos of kids opening new boxes of new toys.
Kinder Surprise.
Oh,
yeah.
Or there's a lot of Kinder Surprise-esque capsule item.
Okay.
Open the thing, and then there's things, and then there's like, what is it?
And they'll open like 20 or 30 of these things in a video.
In a row.
And
then the next one, and then like it's and
dopamine hit. Wow.
Yes, I've watched things on this, what it does in like a child's brain, but people's brains, but particularly with the child's brain, it's like it's as if it's like the rat pressing the button where it's like, am I going to get the treat? Am I going to get the treat? And the dopamine level goes up, not every time. If you press it, every time you get a treat, it's like, what for them, it's like, what is it going to be? And I don't know what it is. It's the mystery of it. It's like when the rat would press the button and it would sometimes release a treat, sometimes not. And that would release more dopamine than when you press it and you're guaranteed. It's like when your favorite song comes on the radio, you're a little bit more like, oh, that's my favorite song, as opposed to, oh yeah, it's my playlist, and like of course,
all
it's
my
playing.
songs are my favorite.
Yeah. So for them, it's like it's training their brain to be like, it's the same as when you're like, where's an entertaining Snapchat video? Not Snapchat, that's not a thing anymore. TikTok. Yeah, I'm behind the times. TikTok video, or those short 2 minutes or less. It's like next, entertain me, you know. And that's sort of what this is doing now. Open it up. Okay, what's the next thing? Oh, I wonder what it is. Open it up. Oh, okay, now I'm the up and then the down, the up and then the down. And
Right.
and so I just don't think it's good for their brains. It's a little thing, but it can eventually become a big problem in, you know, satisfaction with life. So we
Right.
are okay with them watching certain YouTube channels that we've decided are like, there's this guy from the UK and his channel's called Half Asleep Chris, and he does a bunch of Lego epic, like Lego train type things.
Big Lego scenes.
Lego things where it's like, okay, the train's gonna go through here, it's up the stairs and then down, and then he has these two cats that like, and the train is bringing them treats or like whatever. So he does things that are almost engineering feats, you could say. And that's like, I don't know, he doesn't really unbox the Lego. He talks about which set it is. So it is, the products are there, but it's not in the same focus, in the same close up, in the same like, what is it? Oh, it's this, you know. It's more, like I said, like these engineering sort of things. And then he also has videos about his cats, and he puts a camera or a tracking device on his cat to be like, where does my cat go at night? Because I don't know, you know. And you know, and then there was like foxes in his backyard, and that was cool because he caught that on camera. It just sort of harmless things that were like, you can watch any video on this guy's channel, but you're only watching his channel for right now. And I trust them. They're pretty good. They used to kind of be a little like, we're just going wherever. And then when we realized, oh no, we don't, we put some constraints, and they listen pretty well. So that's it. So it's pretty minor stuff, but sometimes, like, there are some things that I've heard from other friends or family that their kids are a little older, and it's like, oh, okay, make sure, like, you know, on Minecraft you can go where you're online, and then you can have encounter other people, and you know, okay, well then we won't go online right now. You know, there's certain things that like kind of I was told about, and it's sort of helpful to be like, well, we're not going to do that yet.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't know if this is really boring. It's really like very rudimentary level of things, but that's where it starts, is putting constraints, I think, on, because if you're like, oh yeah, watch YouTube, that's like, they're actually allowed to watch anything on Netflix Kids. That's actually more or less, that's fine, and they have their same shows. They don't really diverge much.
Do you have hour limits? How much you let your kids be online, stuff like that?
I do, yeah. So in the morning, since there's three of them, I have turns where it's okay, you get a turn, and it's very arbitrary. It's whatever I say the turn is. Okay, we'll say another 20 minutes for so and so's turn. So they each get a turn. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and a half. It's however long mommy wants the turn to be. But they each three need to get a turn in the morning. So sometimes it's done by 10, sometimes it's done by noon. It just depends on how quick my turnover of turns were. And then at lunch, for sure, this is the summer. I have to be more regimented in the summer. So then we have lunch, and then we do a little like homework journal writing stuff for just to keep up with the writing. And then I think nothing for the afternoon. And sometimes in the afternoon, if don't have anything on and we're just kind of hanging around the house, I will put on one, like a movie, like a classic Disney canon movie that I'm like, today I was like, mommy wants to watch Tangled, so we're watching Tangled. So so sometimes I let them choose. Tomorrow, one of them has asked for Lion King. So again, it's like they kind of get to choose. Sometimes it's a game, sometimes it's a show in the morning, and then nothing for the afternoon. Sometimes it's nothing all afternoon till like Josh gets home, and then they like playing certain games with him. Sometimes I let them have a movie. So I do that. But during school, it's no TV in the mornings or games in the mornings, because it's too much of a hustle. And then when they get home, they get half an hour, and then we do homework. There's not much time, honestly, for games. Or if my kids are going into grade 5, going into grade 3 and then going into grade 1. And at this point in time, particularly for the one in grade 5, like they go to a private school, so it's kind of homework heavy, particularly for the oldest. So we just don't have much time, to be honest, except for weekends.
Is it a Christian school?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Are you concerned about all the education stuff and like child indoctrination and everything like that, or do you feel comfortable that you don't have to worry about any critical theory, this type of stuff that a certain corner of the internet is very worried about, including me?
Well, I've been talking a lot. Do you?
Yeah, like I honestly I haven't done too much research on that topic, but I think it's kind of,
well, since they go to a Christian school, we don't.
Yeah, exactly. Since, like Andrea is saying, since they go to a Christian school, we really don't have to worry about that too much. The curriculum. I know that where we live, that the curriculum there is it is shifting a little bit, and so I have heard some things, but because my kids aren't in that school system, I don't really worry too much about it. I think as they transition from private school to eventually public, then I'll probably have to look into that a little bit more. But it's kind of, for me, I think it's one of those bridges that I think we'll just cross when we get to it. We'll
talk about it.
Yeah.
I think part of it is having an environment at home where they're not afraid to tell you something, where they'll be open, like they'll know that, like, if something is weird or again, this is something that will be way down the line, but if there's something that, I don't want to tell my mom or dad because they freak out at weird thing or whatever, or things that sound a little bit different from what I think, it may not even necessarily be what we think or believe. They might be like, I know that they'll react this way, so I'm not going to even bring it up. We try to foster an environment where, like, hey guys, you can tell us things you're concerned about, even if you're upset or afraid that we'll be upset. We ultimately, like, we won't be upset in the sense that, like, you might get a punishment, but we're not going to be like shame. We just want them to know that they can come to us and talk to us about things without fear of being like.
Yeah, we've tried to foster an environment where failure and mistakes are okay, and that we try and learn from those and then move forward. But it's important to be open about them and to do our best to communicate what happened and how we can improve. And so we really strive to make that sort of a central part of our house.
So that's kind of where I think it kind of goes down to, not kind of, I think it does go down to whatever's happening out there, as long as you talk to your kids and have an open line, like, and you're honest with them, then it should be okay.
Again, tell me if I'm prying too much, but, like, is the school, like, affiliated with the church you go, so you have, like, a community and a support network with the parents? Or, because when I was growing up, I went to public school, and it's like, my parents basically didn't know the parents of any of my friends. But part of that was also being an immigrant. Like, my parents didn't have a common culture. And I think that really changed things a lot. But yeah.
Yeah. So right now, I don't think there really is an affiliate. There's not really a connection between the church we go to and the school that our kids go to.
There is a church. It started off in a church. Yeah. The church was called First Alliance, and it was part of the Alliance denomination. Yeah, denomination. And but it's still affiliated with them. We have our Christmas concerts in their auditorium. But it's more or less, it's pretty on its own. I mean, I can chat with some of the. I'm not super involved in the parent space. My sister's kids go there, so like we're friends. So but again, we're not really worried too much because like we really trust we trust the school, and like they like one of our sons has ADHD and is on it's called an IPP. I can't remember what it stands for, individual something plan. And like so I have meetings all the time with the teachers, like all the time, and they very much care about the kids. There's only 20 kids per class. So I'm quite aware with what's going on in school because I'm helping him with his like homework because he just needs a little bit more support with his homework. So it's something that I'm not really concerned about for us, and that's one of the reasons why we kind of just decided. I keep saying kind of. We decided, be decisive, me. We decided to send our children to Christian school, even though it's pricey. We were on financial aid when Josh was a student, but this is our first year not being on because he has a job and we can afford it. So it's kind of like, oh, we're going out and spending the full price, but it's worth it so that we don't have to. It might be a kind of a cop out, but like so we don't have to worry about it until high school.
Right.
You actually kind of already answered this, but Roman asked, was it important that your kids go to a private school? Why? And how did your marriage change after you had kids? I know his wife. He's only been married a couple of years, and so I know he's thinking about that. You don't. I don't think you know Roman. He's mostly involved on my server, but yeah.
Okay. We can answer the second one.
Yeah, I kind of answered the first one, I think. So how did it change after we had kids? Well, I think it can go one of two ways, and it kind of relates back to what we were talking about before of either lifting your spouse up or putting them down, in the sense that I think kids, especially in the beginning, they're kind of a stressor because you're running on very little sleep, and I think typically like the way we ran it is we relied on each other to make it happen, and we relied on each other to sort of fill the gap. So as an example, like when all of our kids were young, I was responsible for changing the diaper every 3 hours and rewrapping the swaddle blanket. That was my job.
Oh, and then I would take the baby and nurse them to sleep.
Yeah. And
well, you could have switched. I mean, why couldn't Josh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't feel like the hormonal therapy for that.
No, Josh was very involved in the. Well, he's never stopped. He's never stopped being involved. Like he's very involved from the beginning on. I felt very supported as a new mom, by him. He always was off an amount. I don't remember. There's always circumstances with different jobs or school.
It worked out really well, like throughout our marriage, where I was either in between a job or
in school and on summer break, winter break.
Yeah, I was on a winter break, or there was always some sort of circumstance where I had time to devote to contributing, like
in the newborn time, like about a month off ish, or 3 weeks to a month off,
where you're up like every 3 hours doing that whole cycle for the first month or whatever it is. So I think it just puts a strain. So I think not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, what I mean is like you're forced to kind of rely on each other because you have something now that's more important than yourself or your relationship. Like you have a new being that you have to nurture and take care of and put ahead of yourself. So I think it brings out like the good and the bad in people. But I think as long as you're, effective in communicating and effective in how you navigate the different roadblocks that come up, like I think it was good.
Well, okay, so we were young. Like Josh was
pretty young.
23 when we had our first.
Yeah.
So we got married. So I was 23 when we got married. He was 21. So he's 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So Watch out.
There's that.
Watch out for me.
Yeah.
So anyways, so he was young. He's young. I am youngish for being a first time mom at 26. Because he was 23 and he turned 24 a week later.
Yeah.
But so I'm like youngish, but not that young to be a first time mom.
Right.
But he was young for a first time dad, because usually the guy's older, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I really do feel like we were married for 2 years and I was pregnant for we were married for 2 years. So I think we celebrated our 2-year anniversary when I was 8 months pregnant.
Right.
So we didn't have much time before, because I had some goals.
Yeah, very specific metrics.
I wanted to be. Well, my mom had my sister and me. Like I'm a twin. I'm a fraternal twin. My sister does not look like me, but we are twins. Anyways, so we were born when my mom was 38, and so I was always like, my mom was like, be a young mom, and I'm like, okay, I want to be a young mom, and I want to have energy. So I always wanted to be married. My mom got married when she was 36, and then had us at 38. So I wanted to be. I had goals, like I said. So I was married technically at 23 and turned 24 a week later. And but technically and then had pregnant at 25, and then actually had my son when I was just a month into 26. So sorry, our son. And so then just to clarify.
Right.
So so we just had what we have found, I found a lot of, why didn't we go hiking when we were just us? Like when we go hiking along with the kids now. And we're like, why didn't we do this when we were just us? So there's a lot of I don't want to say regrets as if they're like serious regrets, but so how it's changed in the sense of, too bad we didn't think to do cool things before we had kids. Like we kind of just hung out and went to our parents' houses.
Yeah, we were kind of bums.
We didn't do a lot that was that interesting. We did go to Europe.
We did.
For 3 weeks before we had our kids.
Yeah, we did that.
That was our big thing.
But in the day-to-day, we kind of just
did very, very regular day-to-day things.
We did the normal things. We didn't go out on adventures or anything like that.
So we have why didn't we go do this or that or the other before we had kids? But we're doing it now, and it's not too late. It's fine. It's fine. It's never too late.
Yeah.
So
you're still very young. I mean, it's not like you're in your 70s.
No, I know. That's why I'm like, it's not too late. It's just sometimes there are some things we were both like I brought up hiking. I don't know, trying different restaurants. But I mean, Josh's parents live 5 doors down, and they watch the kids all the time. Yeah. And they're older now. Like I said, our youngest is 6. So it's not actually that difficult for us to go out.
We're making up for it now. We go on date nights pretty regularly and try different stuff. And we're fortunate in that sense, because we know there's a lot of couples out there who don't have that kind of support. So
I was going to ask you about that. How important has family support and stuff been in raising your kids? Yeah.
Massive.
So huge.
Massive.
So my parents have passed away, both of them. And so it's his parents. Oh yeah, I have a sister, but she has kids very similar ages to my kids. So we've been support as.
Isn't that a help more than a hindrance?
It was a help in the sense of doing play dates with each other, especially when I didn't have a lot of mom friends. So it was a help in that, but it wasn't the same kind of help that his mom would be to, or she would take the kids and be like, go have a rest. So I would notice when his mom, especially when the kids were younger, toddler, preschool age, when his mom would say go on vacation, his family's from Nova Scotia, which is the east coast of Canada. And so
what did he call it?
Canadistan? I don't know, Kanakistan.
Kanakistan, yes.
Yeah, it's the east end of that. Right. So say she would go home for a couple weeks. I would be like, why am I being so short with the kids? I'm not usually like this. Oh, right. Oh, I haven't had the kind of break I'm used to. Yeah. So it's huge. You don't notice it until it's gone for those like that bits of time. Again, the kids, it's definitely getting easier because they just do their own thing and play and
they're pretty self-sufficient at this point. Give them food and stuff.
Well, in the summers, in the fall, and when they go back to school, it's homework stuff and making sure they get projects done and whatever. So it's a different kind of involved, but it's the keeping them alive part isn't as.
It's not as much of a strain.
Did you guys or do you guys do the date thing? Date night thing. Specifically relation maintenance thing that some couples do?
I think we get a lot of opportunities for date nights. Do I look at them as like
it's not regimented? I mean,
I don't think I look at them as like let's refine our marriage.
It could be. It could be.
Go along with it.
Well, okay. I feel like informally.
Maybe implicitly it's kind of
okay, so informally I can't let anything go in the sense if something's bugging me. So informally I will bring something up if I'm like, hun, this I'll bring up the thing, whatever the thing might be that would be bugging me. I think I've come to a place where I'm letting things sit until a more opportune moment instead of in the moment. I'm still working on it, but where I'll bring it up when we're on a date and not in a negative way. It's usually not you do this evil thing. It's more like, hey, kind of the maintenance-y things where it's like, hey, like I wanted to mention this or that, and it's not necessarily so serious. It's not like, hey, it's more like, okay, we brought this up, and this isn't like a dig at Josh. It's just a difference between, say, someone who's more introverted versus extroverted, where I'm like, I know there are things going on in that head. I just want to like get them into my ear so I know what's going on in your head, because I definitely say all the things and need to kind of pull back. Self-admitted, and then he could like get the things out to me. So it's not bad, it's just tendencies. So I could bring that up during a time or something, and that's like, oh look, I brought this up, but it's not like because we needed to bring it up. It's again, I can't help it. I can't hold things in. I'm very like, or if it's gnawing away, I have to say it, which is like good and maybe bad, but more in the long run it's good because things don't fester. I don't have any passive aggressive anger towards Josh. I am not a passive aggressive person. It's just aggressive. But not really. It's there. It's just it exists and it's not passive aggressive. I can't pretend. I can't be like, okay.
But that's good.
I think it's very important. So if something is bugging you, you should definitely bring it up and talk it out. How that's done is like, that's situational, but I think, as like an underlying value, I think that's really important. If you have an issue, you should definitely raise it rather than bury it. Because
you can let things go. Like I'm all for letting things go. If you're
right.
If it's
like a minor thing,
like let it go, and work on that too. But also if you try to let it go and it's still there, then like say it. That's my 2 cents.
Greg says hi. Greg says hi, and he says, I take as few breaks as possible with mine. You blink, they're driving. Which reminds me, so I'm an insurance broker, and I just remember when my sister called me to tell me my oldest nephew was to add him to their insurance. I nearly fell out of my chair.
How much? Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh, well, that was a whole other thing. No.
The shock.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it was just the shock that he was 16.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's like...
Yeah. Well, our oldest is 10. So...
Yeah,
I've been a mom for a decade. What? That's weird. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. It's hard to believe. Really.
He's going to be a teen soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Navigate all that stuff.
He's a young 10. which is
He
sweet
is.
and nice for us.
He's very tall, but very young. So,
Yeah, he's tall. He's super tall, but
Yeah.
it's like, oh well, we'll take the sweet little innocence.
Yeah.
A little longer.
Yeah. That'll be an interesting time.
So actually, it is
Yeah.
really funny. Our oldest takes after me very much in his like reactions, and then our middle takes after Josh, and it's funny because the way that I'm talking about my kids now. Sorry, but I'm just gonna do it. So it is really funny. It just looking at little personality quirks. So like our oldest is like, don't scream, which would be me when I was younger. And loud reaction. And it took us a while. We didn't realize how pokey, like poke the bear, our middle guy was.
Because he's so
quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of just like he just sits back with his video game controller and he's just kind of like,
he'll do this little smirk like he'll be playing, and then it's like,
and then I'm like Isaiah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, shoot, I said his name. Oh well. Whatever. I don't mind.
Oh no, people are gonna know.
Like, buddy, you're. I know.
Well,
it's
you guys,
I'm like, sorry.
You guys have one of the most generic last names in the world, so it's like,
I know. No
as opposed to me. Yeah. Greg asks, when will the sex talk be?
I think it is. So that's been delegated to me, which I'm happy to take on.
I didn't delegate. You said you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm happy to take that on. So
no, the school. The school's basically decided.
Yeah, right. So I don't know, probably around 12.
No, it's grade 4. And see, you've forgotten this. Grade 4.
Do we have it already?
Grade 4. They have family talk and they want the dads to go with it.
Yeah, that was the end of last.
Yeah, this past grade. So our son is in grade 4, and it wasn't. They mostly talked about like changing bodies type thing.
Yeah, they didn't do the birds and the bees talk.
That's not until grade 5, which is next year, I think.
Oh, so the birds and the bees talk.
I think, but I'm not sure. But it will like this. So in a way,
11, 12.
In a way, this school is like, please have us the same gendered parent, basically. Because I have no girls, so I'm not going to be doing it with any girls. So it's going to be Josh with all the boys when they hit those, whatever. And it's the school. It's kind of like we were thinking. Well, you thought 12.
Yeah.
But according to the school, they've decided to have these like family talks, and they bring up the internet actually about how you have to be careful. They didn't say why, and I don't think our son asked. But next year, I think we'll sit a little bit actually. Yeah. So maybe because of the internet.
I think a lot of parents are very, very naive about, probably not your age, but like certainly, yeah, I think there's a lot of parents who are very naive about how much, like, when I was 12, I had access to pornography, and this was before thing, and it was like, now I wonder, like, how did such hardcore pornography get to 12-year-olds? Right. But it did.
Yeah.
I didn't find anything because I was just a sweet little girl in a Christian home.
No, but there's stories about that. There's stories like that everywhere, though, right? Like, and it's still, it's even more. I'm sure it's even worse today than it was even back then.
Oh, it is. Yeah, just
sure
a click away.
So yeah, that's definitely a talk like we're going to be having, and I'm lucky enough to have a friend group that's open enough to talk about that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a topic of discussion. Absolutely. It's like just opening the eyes to what's out there and what to avoid. And
why.
Yeah, absolutely. And why. Yeah. I've listened to a lot of Andrew Huberman podcasts lately, and he had on a specialist there.
Do you have you heard of Chris Williamson?
Oh, okay, Chris Williamson. He's the British guy, right?
Yeah. So he's had Huberman on, and Huberman has been on Rogan before.
He's a neuropsychology professor for Stanford. Okay. He had a specialist on that talks about how pornography affects the brain. And it was really fascinating to hear how, I think it was a 3-hour long discussion. It was a big one. I don't know if anyone listening to this has heard it, but it's Yeah. So that for me too is just an eye opener of how damaging it can be, not just on the spiritual level, but on like the sort of mental. Like it does a lot of damage. Like
Physiology, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Bringing back the dopamine
Right.
thing.
Right. And you see
Yeah.
more and crazier, and it gets out of control. So
Regarding my nephews, not with pornography, but just with video games, I just spoke to one of my nephews and I explained to him dopamine and that these are very sophisticated companies with millions of dollars trying to figure out how to, and I told him, look up dopamine on Wikipedia and like
coming back.
understand what's going on. And he actually after that started limiting his own
Good for him.
that's impressive.
Yeah his own game usage, because he's like, he understood that people were trying to manipulate him. Yeah.
It's impressive.
Roman says, I wonder about that. How much of it is necessary? How much of it is don't stick beans in your ears?
Right.
Like,
it's kind of like, do you overexpose first so they learn the lesson and then back off, or do you like?
No,
right.
That is not what you do.
That's what I feel like it's being alluded to, maybe, but I don't know. I guess I just kind of think like, yeah, like I think it's good to make them aware, and then like I was saying earlier in the live stream, how they can come to us if there's ever anything that they're struggling with or anything that they have questions about. And so that's really something we're trying to foster and to nurture in our house. So.
And bring the things in the appropriate time of like, we don't want to be like, okay, so you're only ever allowed to watch like YouTube with us ever.
Yeah.
So eventually we will pull back.
Yeah.
And eventually we will be like, okay, so here are things to look for. You can or like at this point in time, we'll be screening what YouTube channels you want to look at, or until eventually we'll be like, okay, so we won't be, but we might be checking up your subscriber, like what you're subscribed to or what comes up on your thing, whatever. I don't know. Like we will, like eventually, like letting go, still being present. Though, and I don't know what the right appropriate time is until like we get there.
I kind of think it depends on each child as well. Like we were saying earlier, how our oldest is kind of a young 10. And so I think it depends on their maturity level and where they're at growth wise. And I think it's really situational. I don't think there's a hard and fast, it's this age on this date, they're going to learn this, and this. And then when they reach this next checkpoint, it's this, and this. Like, I think it's going to be very circumstantial and case by case. And that's how I'm approaching this one. I know I said earlier as well that I'm kind of linear, but for this, I think it's going to be one of those things that it's like, you just got to ask yourself, do they seem ready? Yeah, I think they're ready. Like, let's talk about it. And so, yeah.
Well, also, so we probably have to go in the next like 5 minutes, Jacob, because we have to go put our kids to bed.
Yeah, I was about to say you've been on here for like an hour and a half. Well, you guys are always welcome. We can do a 5-hour stream next time.
We're gonna talk here for that one.
Yeah, that's it.
I actually sometimes when I have time, I just put up a just chatting stream. The thing with StreamYard, you really should try it. I've become like an evangelist for StreamYard. You can give the link to everybody, and like anybody can decide to come in, and you can have up to 10 people on. And you can put up their messages and stuff, but I'll let you guys finish off. What were you thinking? Was there anything you wanted to say? You want to plug your channel, Andrea, because I have such a bigger audience than you do.
Thanks, Jacob. I appreciate it. Anyone who doesn't overlap, who's new, well, thanks for taking the time to watch. And any faithful subscribers, thank you also for watching here. Anyone's welcome. And I appreciate all of you. So yeah, Andrea with the Bangs is my YouTube channel. Also,
there's a link below. Yeah.
Okay, and then also I have a podcast under Andrea. No. It's under She Wonders Why for podcasts.
Okay.
And I only release my interviews. I do smaller videos on my YouTube as well. But
you just had Justin Brierley on.
I did, yes. Yeah, that's like the second time I've had Justin on. So it was nice to talk about him again for the latest season of The Big Conversation. Oh, hello, Samuel Adams.
So Sam says, wait, I get here and only in time for closing remarks.
Sorry, Sam. Should have been paying more attention to the time. Just kidding, Sam. Sorry. I love you, man. Well, do you want to ask a question for closing remarks? Because I don't know. I don't know if there's. I don't have anything specific.
There's nothing for me either. Nothing really too specific that I had.
Is there anything you wanted to get to, Jacob, that we didn't?
No, this was a great conversation. Obviously, you guys, either one of you, but specifically Josh, more than you, Andrea. I'm just joking.
Well, no one's Mr. Bangs.
That's totally fine.
Oh, also thanks, Sam, for unsubscribing to me.
Wow.
I appreciate it.
Sam says he's unsubscribing.
Appreciate it.
But you guys are always welcome. I've been trying to encourage people to have more discussions because I just think it's just so important. And I will let you guys go. And don't be
Sam did just ask a question that I kind of want to answer. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's my advice for getting guests to come onto my channel? Well, first of all, just be like super fun-loving and just like kind and happy on Twitter, and be the one. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not. You know, I'm on Twitter. I'm a minority because I'm a woman, so that helps. And then also, it would honestly, most of the people that are guests that people have heard of, most of it happens on Twitter, through Twitter connections, or like through like Discord, or through Facebook fan groups, or through people who I know from Twitter or from those groups. So honestly, most of it's all through more or less getting to know people, community type things. You know, Sam, we've talked about this before. I'm a self-made, pull you up by the bootstraps nobody who made it on Twitter. Anyway.
Yeah, Sam says he's going to self-identify as a woman. Okay, I will see you guys later.
Yeah. This was nice. I don't know how to leave. What?
I will remove you. You're gone. You're no longer on the stream. If anybody else, if anybody wants to come on and chat or discuss, I put the link in the chat stream. Otherwise, I am going to hang around here for a little while. See what I need to turn off Stranger Things. Okay. Anything anybody wants to discuss? There are, according to YouTube StreamYards, there are 5 people watching. I don't know if I should believe StreamYard or not. But if people want to talk about things, they are welcome to come on. I've actually been going on a Muslim stream a bunch. I put a link in the chat. Just click on it and you can come on to the stream. Should be pretty simple and easy. Just click on the link. Roman!
Hey, Jacob.
Roman!
Uh-oh.
Hey, Jacob. Roman!
Tell me about the thing with the Muslims. What's going on?
It's interesting. I mean, mostly it's Christians who come on there, but there are some atheists. Have you ever watched Mythvision?
Yeah,
It's
I've
one
watched
of the.
Mythvision.
So Derek Mythvision was actually on there yesterday, which
Oh,
was
whoa,
interesting.
that's interesting. What
Yeah,
happened?
yeah. It was just a little discussion. The thing is, so I hope Isa doesn't feel like I'm talking behind his back. But there's the host, so they're basically co-hosts, Khalil and I have no idea what you're saying, Greg. Khalil and Isa, and like if it was just Isa, I would probably not go, be paying as much attention. Khalil is really, really smart. Not that Isa isn't smart, but Khalil's like next level smart.
Mhm.
And Isa talks a lot more than Khalil does. And I kind of wish Khalil would talk more. But yeah, Khalil is really interesting. The stuff he talks about is interesting. It's a pretty big channel, and I really I support what they're doing. They're having intelligent discussions,
Mhm.
and it's easier for me. It's funny, even though people might think that like I would have more in common with, I don't know. Well, I mean, I do kind of in some ways have more in common with Paul Vanderklay, but like Khalil has a large audience, and he's a monotheist, and basically everything he believes is within the Noahide description, whereas Paul is a Trinitarian. God have mercy on his soul. And so, and he's doing the type of chat stuff that I would like to see happen more in our corner of the internet. That's what I've been trying to do with my chats and like just chatting streams. And he does it for like 8 hours, basically 5 or 6 nights a week. So I've kind of decided to kind of throw my support towards him if I can. So yeah, that's why. Yes, may he have mercy on us all, and but specifically the Trinitarians.
So what's so interesting about what Halil says? What's so cool about it?
Well, I mean, he's very involved in the cosmological argument stuff.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of those things necessarily, but he was a Christian and then he was an atheist YouTuber who is now a Muslim, and like that's interesting. And basically, he thinks about things like he doesn't take anybody's. He's just a very interesting person. It's very interesting. Like, I would consider myself a fan. He's one of those people that I would like to see have a larger audience, as opposed to like a lot of people who have um, like, I would rather not see anybody pay attention to.
Okay. It's just nice to see like the gears turning in his head. Is that the kind of guy he is? Is what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been trying to. Okay, I don't. I don't mind, and in some ways I prefer not to be the center of attention. Like, I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room necessarily, especially like when somebody like Sam Adams is around. I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room at all. I would say similar things about a bunch of people like Yosef. Um, I am pissed off that the people who are supposedly intellectuals are dumber than I am. And it's like,
yeah.
I would prefer somebody like Khalil be the type of person that like generally our society is listening to, as opposed to, I don't even know if you know this name, but Owen Jones or Paul Krugman or Robert Reich or on the right. Who can I say on the right? The thing is with the people on the right, you can't just be an idiot and actually be on the right and not get completely attacked for your stupidity. Whereas even the moderate GOP, right? They will elevate all kinds of Gregory, either come on, click on the link and come on, or go away. I'm not going to talk to you. Paul Krugman, yeah, he's evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought my internet was out for a second. So the cosmological argument, if you don't mind me responding to Gregory here.
Go ahead.
All right. Is the Kalam argument? It basically just means that like there had to be a first mover. If you've heard the first mover argument, it's the same thing. Atheists believe the Big Bang too. It's dumb. I don't like the argument at all, but that's the argument when it comes down to it.
I don't think it's dumb. I just find it funny that Christians have started making it, although I guess Aquinas already made it. Mm-hmm. Like it kind of negates the Trinity. Like if your definition of God is that he is ase, which is my definition of God, then like the Trinity like just falls apart, because even the egalitarian Trinitarians will say, even the egalitarian Trinitarians will say that only the Father is ase.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, to me, like it's that like if you're going to say that, if you're going to be like, oh, Jesus has a mode in creation, it'd be like, okay, well, God is God, and Jesus is the Word by which like the world was made, or whatever, right? So God is the first mover, and Jesus is the first move. If you believe this, I'm not 100% behind this, but this seems to be the sort of thought process that goes behind it.
But doesn't that make Jesus not God if the Father is the first mover?
Well, it depends on how you think about it. So like if you say that like my speech is separate from me, but is it really? I said it, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is definitely different from you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, then it's different than me, but it's also central enough to me that like if you heard my voice, it would be totally reasonable to say that you heard me, right?
Okay, so this is the whole thing of emanation and Jewish, right? So yes, we like in Judaism we believe that there is representations of God in creation. That's fine, but like that's completely separate and different from like like the Trinity basically falls apart if you actually believe in the Kalam argument, which is why I think William Lane Craig has ended up like he's no longer really a Trinitarian.
Whoa, really?
Did you?
That is interesting.
Well, he claims he is. Did you watch his discussion with Dale Tuggy?
I haven't watched any William Lane Craig stuff since I was an atheist in like 2012 or something. It was a long time.
Okay.
Um.
Yeah, he had a debate with Dale Tuggy, who's like the preeminent Unitarian debater and theologian today, and he was defending the Trinity in a way that like is completely like it's completely different from any historical conception of the Trinity.
Oh, William Lane Craig. Oh,
Yeah.
that is interesting. I've been trying to look into this kind of stuff. Like it seemed like, but I don't know. So like the thing I was thinking about was, did you see my thing on Schopenhauer that I posted on your server?
I don't think so.
Okay, is basically Schopenhauer makes this argument for God, which is a much better argument for God for me because it's an actual argument for a God, which is that essentially, and it's phenomenology. So there's a leap in here that I don't think you can make unless you've done a little bit of phenomenology. But it's basically like you have this thing called will, right? This idea that you're like there's like a person here and there's sensations here, and that if someone steps on your foot, you're not going to like it, right? And but you also have like representation where you like can see your hand and it becomes like an object, right, in space that you can observe like any other object in space. So you have this thing called will and you have this thing called representation. And it turns out that everyone else has that thing too. And so if you theoretically, you might not have a will, I don't know, but it sure seems like you do. And it sure seems like every human being does. And in fact, it seems like animals do. And his whole thing was that actually the universe, if you really carry this to a logical conclusion, the universe must have a will too, in addition to its representation. And this will is God. And this seems like a much more reasonable argument for God than any other argument I've ever heard, because it's an actual argument for a personal being behind the universe. And I actually wanted to go read it because I want to actually understand it. I'm reading Will and Representation now. But I've also heard about trying to make arguments for like the Trinity from phenomenology, and it doesn't. I don't know how it would work, but I'm sort of trying to figure it out because it seems like Jesus has something to do with the universe, and so like God is constantly creating the universe, which so maybe that like God in the universe is sort of constantly being born, and this is something to do with like Jesus being begotten. But I'm not sure. I'm still kind of working it out.
Well, why do you feel like you need the Trinity? You're a Protestant, right?
I mean, yeah, basically. But I would say that I don't need the Trinity, but I feel like this has been passed down to me. People believe this. It's part of the world. It's part of God has made all this religion with all this Trinity stuff, and it's like, okay, well, why? And if it's just bullshit, this bullshit is still communicating something important to me. So I still have to consider it. I still have to apply my mind to it to try to understand why God has put this in front of me. Right? Does this make sense to you?
So I've told you about the Weezer song, right?
The what?
No, the Weezer song.
You've not told me about the Weezer song. What's the Weezer song?
So if you want to destroy my sweater, hold this thread while I walk away.
Okay, I have heard this. What was the point of this? I forget.
So my whole thing is that the Trinity exists basically as the string that God wove through the sweater that is Christianity, so that when you pull on it, it falls apart and you can see Judaism.
Okay. Do you really think that's it? You take the Trinity away and there's Judaism underneath it, and that's all that it is?
I think if you take... Well, this has historically been true. Like, Sam certainly hopes that it's not true, that if you take the Trinity away, like, people end up rejecting Christianity for Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, the Noahide movement has definitely gained a lot of people out of Christianity by them first rejecting the Trinity. It's like it is that obvious thing which and so when I saw Mark 12 where Jesus says that the greatest commandment is the Shema, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Yeah.
That was what ultimately convinced me that God created Christianity in such a way that it clearly leads Christians towards Torah. Because if you are serious about Christianity, you will be serious about what Jesus teaches as opposed to what Paul and the others teach. And if you're serious about what Jesus teaches in the Gospels, you will recognize that monotheism is the core of Jesus' message, and that will make you reject basically all the Christianity that exists. And Unitarians have at various times sprouted up in Christianity, but I think there's a reason why Christianity is Trinitarian as opposed to Unitarian, because God wants those clear road signs for people who are serious to move away from the idolatry in Christianity. And yes, this is a view of Christianity that the vast majority of Christians would find offensive and do find offensive. But
so this is weird to me because it seems like there are certain things that like you say, and I know you don't believe this. I know you would dispute this, and so I want to hear you dispute this. But to me, it seems like this is more of this like, oh, God's super deceptive and like doesn't actually sound like that nice a guy when you talk about it this way, right? So like when you say like, oh, the world, God made a world that was 6 billion years old, like 6,000 years ago, right? Or or like it's the same like thing with me. It's like, oh, well, the Bible says like there's one God, right? In the Shema, right? The Bible's about the Shema, like significantly, maybe like at least like 30% of it is just that. It's just like how bad idolatry is. And then you're saying like, and this is your sort of argument, like, okay, if God is really three, right? This is a serious problem. And so to me, like, okay, yeah, but then this Trinity thing got passed down, and it's passed down for some reason. And again, maybe it's bullshit, but the bullshit, it seems like the bullshit has to have a meaning. And you think the Trinity is literally just the points of an arrow pointing toward Judaism. I'm like, okay, but like, why? It seems like God could have picked anything, right?
Yeah, God could have picked anything. No, that's not the right one. Hold on. Just a second. Okay, this is the right one. Okay, so Deuteronomy 32:20. No, this also isn't the right one. Just a second. Um, 31:18. 31:18. Okay, so Deuteronomy 31:18. Va'anochi haster astir panai bayom hahu al kol hara'a asher asa ki fana el Elohim acherim. Okay, so what does that mean? Anochi, I, God is speaking here. Haster astir, I shall. So this is a double language. In Hebrew, there's repetition of the same verb, which usually gets translated as I will surely, I surely whatever, right? Like you will surely die. It's actually mot tamut, right? It's a repetition. Panai, my face. On that day, al kol hara'ah, on all of the evil, right? Which they have done because they have turned, or he has turned, to other gods. So this is a basic belief in Judaism, which is that in order for us to have freedom of choice, God had to hide himself from us so that we would in fact be capable of choosing between good and evil. This is a primary goal of the so one an analogy some rabbis will give is like a father who wants his child to come looking for him may go hide so that the child can come looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
In a similar way, God hides himself so that we can come and look for him and know him better, right? And this is an infinite road that we have to go as we come closer and closer to God. He reveals himself more and more to us, and the further away we are, right? And that's how we understand this verse of I will surely hide my face, right? So when people move away from God, God moves away from them. When people move towards God, God in a sense moves closer to us. And the veil that was created at the first symptom, at the first constriction of God. Another analogy is that how likely would you be to sin if like Moses was standing next to you your whole life? Now, how likely would you be to sin if like the chariot that Ezekiel saw or like a seraph was standing over you with a sword at all times, right? And how much more so would you be incapable of sinning if God made himself absolutely clear, right? So we have to have faith, right? Because like the verse says, Lahagid baboker chastecha ve'emunatcha belelot, to proclaim God's loving kindness during the day and his faith during the night. So at night we are grasping, right? We can't see clearly and we must have faith. Whereas in the day, God's kindness is manifest to us and we can see it clearly, right? So part of our life is in fact moving through Gei Tzalmavet, the valley of the shadow of death, towards God, right? Through the darkness, hoping for the dawn. And so the first thing that God did was create this veil which allowed this seeming void where he is not, so that he could allow his light into it. And we were created so that we could in fact bring God's light into this darkness. And the darkest place in the world is actually the human heart, because I think I was explaining to you how a stone at least can't rebel against God, right? But
Right.
we can rebel against God. So when we turn away from God, we are able to in fact be the darkest thing in all of creation. And when we turn towards God, it allows God's light to shine in creation in a way that would be impossible without God giving us that freedom. And that's what Deuteronomy 30 means when it says, I call the heavens and the earth to witness against you, right? That I have set before you life and death, good and evil. Now choose life, right? So what does that mean? That all of creation is a witness that we were given the choice, and God wants us to choose life, to choose good, to choose him, right? And so we are all born infinitely far from God. Some people seemingly in this finite world further away than others. And all of us have the responsibility and the capability to turn towards God, right? So somebody who's born in rural India to some Hindu family, right? He's not born with the same revelation of God that I was, being born into a Jewish family, but that actually taught me at least some things like monotheism and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But each of us has a capacity to turn towards God, and the more we turn towards God, the more we see the God who is true, the God who is the one God. And that's what God wants the most. And so that person who was born in rural India to a Hindu family has actually the opportunity to turn towards God in a more substantial way than I would ever be capable of, because I did not have to work. I never, like, the Trinity was never something that was taught to me, thank God. But the trail is clear no matter where you are. In Islam, in Christianity, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, there is a trail that God creates, and that's what it means that we say God had an extra love for Israel, that he made us a light onto the nations. What does that mean? We were blessed with being that beacon to the entire world, that people can turn towards the Torah. And it's a blessing. It says, I did not choose you because you were the greatest, but because of my own name, right? It is only a grace that God has given us as Jews, that we were given such a pure revelation that the rest of humanity, I mean, now it's more obvious than it was 2,000 years ago. The funny thing is, 2,000 years ago, we were saying that these same things, that, God gave us this capacity to be a light onto the nations, and that his house in Jerusalem will be a place of prayer for all the world, right? It's absolutely crazy that 2,000 years ago these things were true. Nowadays, people are like, oh, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, like, it spread through Islam and Christianity, and like half the world already, a majority of the world's human beings believe that Israel was like Moses was specifically, like, 2,000, even 100 years ago, during the Holocaust. Imagine me telling you this, and so many people being like, you guys are almost all dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
But imagine it 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. The book of Isaiah is at least 2,200 years old.
Okay, so I had at least like 5 different ideas while you were saying all that stuff.
Okay.
So the first one that I think you're gonna like the most is that the last one, but whatever. So like you're saying, like how God like empties himself out, makes a dark place so that God's light can fill it up. Okay. So when you think about this, like, oh, what is a dark place? And like, well, if Judaism is the place of light, then, oh, right, God made these dark places of Christianity and Islam, right? So they can be filled.
Oh, no. The darkness, I mean, is beyond Christianity and Islam. Like, Hinduism is definitely a lot darker than Christianity and Islam.
Okay.
I mean, the Aztecs, like, sacrificing hundreds of thousands of people, like, that's about as, like, and, so.
But the idea would be that, like, somehow this can, like, spread out by, like, sort of stretching itself thin, right? Does this make sense? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't make sense. Okay. Like, especially, I've heard you say this about Christianity, right? It's sort of like a more viral form of Judaism or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
And I believe the same about Islam. Yeah. And I think Protestantism is actually a more viral form of Christianity because it's further away from God. But it was able to, like, manifest. It was able to come all the way to the Americas and, like, manifest destiny, and, like, it goes all over the world, and it's like it's spreading Christianity even places that, like, Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy can't go, and Islam doesn't go.
You think? Like, the conquistadors, like, did a pretty good job of turning the Filipinos Catholic. Did a pretty good job of turning the South Americans Catholic. It seems like they did all right.
I don't think. I mean, it's possible, but, like, as far as the translations that the Protestants have done, like, the Protestants are still translating. So White Muslim Woman says, I think rabbis should encourage everyone to be Muslims since it has all Noahide laws fulfilled. So I don't know if you're Claire Caw avatar, but when somebody tells me that they want to be a Noahide, my first suggestion to them is, in fact, to check out Islam, because unfortunately the Noahide community as it exists now is a well, she claims she's not Claire. We'll try to believe her. The Noahide community as it exists is not really healthy, and at least some Muslim communities are healthier, and Islam is clearly within the Noahide laws, as opposed to vast majority of Christianity. I also suggest Unitarian Christianity, but you're welcome to come on, White Muslim Woman, if you would like. Let me put the link in the chat again. But I do ask that everybody who comes on put on their cameras so that I can check that they're not Claire.
So I know that you appreciate, like, this Catholic hierarchy thing, and I sort of see what you mean by this. But, like, if you're talking about, like, if idolatry is the problem, it seems like they, like, multiply it. They, like, have, like, these sort of.
No, I think they have less idolatry than Protestants do.
So, okay, well, I can't see into their heart. I don't know what's going on with them exactly. But, like, it seems like there's, like, this Marian cult that they practice, and there's this. There's, like, these cults around these little saints and stuff, and you don't see this as a problem in the same way.
I see it as less of a problem than how Protestants view Jesus, because I think Catholics understand, we're not praying to Mary, or at least they're taught we're not praying to Mary, we're praying to God through Mary. We're asking Mary to intercede with us, for us, with God. So they all recognize that the true God is, and in Jewish theology, we believe, in Jewish law, we believe that it's that it is permitted to Gentiles to worship lower beings than God, as long as they acknowledge that there is one God who is above all of their lower gods. Okay.
Right.
And so the monarchical Trinity, which the Eastern Orthodox have, is very explicitly that, right? They believe that the Holy Spirit and Jesus are subordinate to the actual God. So that actually kind of puts them within, even though it's a mistake, it's a permissible mistake. And I think most Catholics think of Jesus the same way, right? That he's not actually God, or at least I hope. Whereas Protestants actually believe that a human being was God. That's just idolatry.
I don't think you can believe it. It's like at least not in the same way that like deicide. I've heard you talk about it. I have never heard a Protestant ever talk about this, and maybe other.
Oh well, Protestants don't talk. They don't talk about deicide mostly because it was a charge that against Jews that was really anti-Semitic and caused a lot of deaths and stuff. Some Catholics will still talk about deicide, but as far as Protestants are concerned, killing Jesus was killing God.
I mean, I don't believe that. That's goofy. That's just goofy.
Of course, the whole idea of Jesus being actual God is just ridiculous. Please turn on your video, white Muslim woman. I only let people with their videos onto the channel.
Okay.
It's a security thing I have. But you're welcome to join us if you turn on your video.
So you're talking about choosing good instead of choosing evil, and sort of like you could imagine like all these good gods, right? Like even Baal was like a fertility god, which is, I imagine, good. But like, and you could imagine, okay, well, you have all these good gods, which aren't obviously as good as God, and then you could imagine, okay, well, why aren't these as good as God? What's the matter with worshiping all these good gods and getting all the good gods there? And like clearly, it seems like this can be unbalanced, right? That you could like, if you worship justice and not mercy, if you worship mercy and not justice, right? This is a problem. And so suddenly you see, oh, right. But if you understand these imbalance, right, it seems like they go towards one God. If you're thinking about it in terms of good, and this seems like, I don't know if this is the idea of the Trinity. I don't think it really is. But that seems to be like, maybe that's what the Trinity is trying to communicate. I don't know.
But ultimately, I mean, the whole idea of a Trinity, the fact you have the word "try" in it, right? The thing of three in it, it's ultimately a rejection of what Judaism taught and what Jesus taught, which is there's one God. Like if God wanted to say there are three gods, like he could have said there are three persons to the one God.
Correct.
Like it's not like the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. I'm not sure why you can't put your face on the internet. Like this is what I don't get. Like it's not like the Tanakh is a short thing. It's not. It's very, very long. And in all of that, God couldn't just like once give us a clear indication of the Trinity so that Jews wouldn't be willing to die like I am willing to die rather than affirm the Trinity. I would rather die. I would like to think that if you were to show to like hold a gun to my head and say there that God is 3 in 1, that I would be willing to die, right? But yeah, it could be bad stats. It would be even worse than Claire. But so it like I don't believe so. This is the difference between a deceptive God trying to trick you, which is what Christians believe. That well, I mean, if you were harassed by people from the internet, that's something we need to deal with as a society, and we can't just accept that as a normal way to do things, which is why I am so against the anonymity. This is why I put my name up. Everybody can find me. Sorry. I the only way I can check to see that you are an actual person, and you are paying attention, and to get that kind of signaling is with your video on. I think it's one of the ways I keep the conversation away from the bots. But so this is the difference between my idea of God hiding his face and the Christian idea of God like putting scales over people's eyes. I think that God sometimes has to show himself in a lesser light before we can get to. He has to lead the way. So to misquote deliberately what Paul says, I think that the pagans coming out of the darkness needed to see the Torah in through a glass darkly, and that's what Christianity and Islam provide, is being able to see the truth of the Torah through a glass darkly, because it's too much. People couldn't accept it and wouldn't accept it, and that's why you have to have the light trickling in through these glasses darkly, which is what Christianity is, as I understand it.
So for you, like the darkness in Christianity, like, or at least the most obvious part of it.
We lost Roman again. If secular Coranists refuse to turn on their video and refuse to talk to people, that's their that is plenty good reason. You're back.
I'm back. So and you also feel there's something dark in Islam, which is not the same, and in fact maybe even lighter than Christianity. But
so I think that Islam and Christianity are based. They have to be there to balance each other, because if there was only one of them, then it wouldn't be obvious that Judaism's actually true. But Christianity has part of the truth, and Islam has part of the truth, and by looking at the two of them is when you actually recognize the actual truth, which is Judaism. And
So I was going to ask specifics, but when I think about it, I think it's more obvious is that they think the Torah is corrupted. I think that has to be like the darkest part at the
that's definitely a part of it. I mean, they have this idea that the Torah is corrupt, and also they have, I mean, there's very obvious problems within Islam, including the fact that so many Muslims, like, I don't think Islam teaches Muslims to behave the way most Muslims do. There's a lot of Muslims who are actually lovely, loving people, and that's why I can say that that a Gentile who adheres to Islam, at least theologically, I don't believe there's any problems. But you see in their actions, like, Muslims go around murdering a lot of people, and not just Jews. Muslims murder more Muslims than they murder even Christians and Hindus. And they definitely go around murdering all kinds of people. They murder Muslims more. Far more Muslims get murdered by Muslims than anybody else.
What do you
and
think
that's obviously wrong. Why
do you think they do that? What do you think is going on?
I think each one of these two arms has a necessarily has a fault to it that when combined together, it becomes obvious Judaism is true. So Christianity has several faults, such as not being monotheistic, as not having a actual religious legal system, right? And Christianity is monotheistic. It has the legal system, right? But it doesn't have the compassion and the whatchamacallit, the secularity and those things which Christianity is missing, Islam has, and those things which Islam is missing, Christianity has, so that somebody can take a look and understand through the two of them that actually the Torah is what is true.
What? So secularity, this sort of is sort of the broad like pluralism idea. I don't have to kill you because you're Hindu. Is this what's going on?
Yeah. That's that's a definite part of it. Like in Judaism, right? We certainly wouldn't go around killing people. I mean, even the Christian Bible says that the Sanhedrin says, we cannot. It is not lawful for us to put anybody to death because we don't go around putting people to death, right?
Yeah. The thing that convinced me you were right about this was actually what Jesus said with the if you lead any of these children to stumble, it would be better if you put a millstone around your neck and cast yourself into the sea, right? And we don't. As evil as pedophiles are, we do not put millstones around their neck and cast them into the sea, right? We don't think that's the right thing to do. It's obvious from how he said it. And so to me, like, oh, right, yeah, okay, this sort of proves that, oh, yeah, there's something to this. And in fact, it's at least 2,000 years old. This isn't something you guys invented like 500 years ago because it was inconvenient or whatever. So, like, that makes sense to me.
Thank you, white Muslim woman, for sticking up for me. But honestly, there's no point to arguing with Claire. She's just a troll. You don't even know who's running that account right now. I do not believe that it's an individual human being who runs the Claire Caw persona on the internet. She's just too ubiquitous to be an individual person. I don't recommend engaging with her, really. I mean, you're certainly free to do it, but she's a fed. I mean, that's the best way I can put it.
So you think it isn't so you guys do have a law, right? You guys have a legal system. You guys have judges and stuff that will like go and enforce these rules.
To some extent. I mean, this is part of why I think that there needs to be a diaspora right now. Why I am anti-Zionist. Why I don't think Jews should be ruling, right? I believe that it is necessary. Greg, stop trolling, please. There's and so we don't have a temple because of the mistakes that people would make with the temple, right? Which includes believing that the sacrifices are payments for their sins, which includes, but one part of that is actually, without the temple, we do not believe we can put anybody to death, right? And Jews are not meant to govern other people. It's not part of our religion for us to govern over other people, right? So we are meant to be, I believe, a light unto the nations. We are meant to be an example, and Judaism is, I believe, actually perfect as an example. But that's why, for example, Judaism cannot be evangelical, because the ultimate religion cannot be evangelical.
That's why you think Jesus is the Jews from 2,000 years ago. You think Judaism itself is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing with Jesus, right? He's the perfect example. That's what he's...
Well, I mean, I believe that, Jesus is the Jews, right? The many Jews, right? And like he says, right? I have not come but to the lost sheep of Israel, right? And it's like, yeah, so Jesus himself was teaching just Judaism. And then Paul came around and corrupted it and all that stuff.
Okay. So you guys have a law. You guys don't have judges. But like,
well, we don't have enforcement capacity while we are in the diaspora.
So this doesn't have to work exactly that way. So like, Islam does have judges. They will exact punishments. But in Christianity, there is such a thing as church law, right? In like the Roman Catholic Church, you can get a church lawyer to go work on your stuff for you. I know I had a friend of mine who was going to do that. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to do church law. I don't know 100% how it works. I think it has something to do with like getting annulments and stuff. But I
know something about canon law. There was a time when the Christian legal system was far more operative, especially like in the Middle Ages, than it is now. But part of Judaism has always been an actual separation between church and state, right? Even during the time of Moses, there was Moses and there was Aaron, right? There was always the prophets and the kings, right?
Yeah. There's the prophet, the priest, and the king. You have these what is it? There's a tripartite. There's a word for this particular sort of separation of powers we have between the executive and the judicial and the legislative. Is there a word for this? Is it tripartite?
Tripartite. I'm not sure that's exactly. I mean, I understand division of powers, but there may be, but it's not. I'm not.
Yeah,
it's not ringing right now. So
okay. Yeah. But it does make sense that if you're going to have, actually the church does have authority, right? We are a theocracy, but it has to be balanced out by like practicality and by, I don't know exactly what it is between the priests and the prophets. Like this guy talks directly to God, but he's not actually in charge of all these rituals and stuff. I don't even know what that means exactly. I'd have to think about it.
Well, I mean, ultimately, there is a lot of division of powers between Judaism within Judaism itself. Even I keep on talking about Jethro, right? And Judaism is meant to be a voluntary thing, right? So the Talmud says that when the Sanhedrin started having to put people to death, they resigned, as they should have. And that I think is part of the reason why there must be galut, there must be the exile, because the laws cannot be enacted unless, like, putting someone to death is something that happens almost never. The Mishnah actually says a Sanhedrin that puts one person to death every 7 years, and believe it's Rabbi Akiva who says every 70 years, is called murderous, right? So even at the very least, like, if you're putting to death more than one person every 7 years, then it's at Jewish ethics would say you need to resign your position from the Sanhedrin.
So this is so you think, what does this mean for you? Does this mean that like people become like people, everybody's heart is circumcised so that no one ever sins, or people only sin once every 14 years, or
what? People, well, what it says in Jeremiah 31, right? That the actual new covenant, right? So here, let me pull up where Jeremiah. I'm pretty sure it's Jeremiah 31:31. You will correct me if I'm wrong. Jeremiah 31. 31. Right. Behold, the days are coming, saith the Lord, when I will make with the house of Israel and the house of Judah a new covenant, right? The Brit Chadashah, and that Christians claim is they are the new covenant. What is the new covenant? The new covenant is not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, which they broke my covenant, and though I was a husband to them, says the Lord. Rather, and this is the covenant. This is the covenant, Zot Habrit, which I will make with the house of Israel after the days, right, says the Lord. I will put my law in their minds and on their hearts, write it, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And no man shall teach his neighbor or a man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all of them will know from the least to the greatest, saith the Lord. Right? So that is the new covenant, which Christians just completely miss. Like, if I have to teach something to you, that tells me the new covenant is not here.
Okay, and you mean never? So you don't even think like this means that like the Great Commission is finished and every person has heard about God and Jesus and all this stuff. You think that this has to mean that like literally people are born with the full knowledge of the Torah in their minds, and this is how it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be no necessity for anyone to teach anybody else. And obviously, there is a necessity for that, since we're actually talking to each other saying, know the Lord, right?
Yeah. You could imagine a future. I know Gavin seems to be interested in this sort of idea where like in the future, like the technology is different. So you could imagine like we could somehow like imprint people with these memories like while they're a fetus of like the Torah, and they could have like this knowledge of the Torah that I probably won't ever have.
The details of how it will be is beyond me, and I think it's a bad idea to try to be too sure about how these prophecies will come true. But what is perfectly obvious to me is the new covenant ain't here.
I mean, not if you interpret it that way. To me, so
how
like,
else
I
would
would
you
say
interpret it?
The Christian way of interpreting this would be that the Great Commission is finished.
Well, has the no. Okay, so let's say that's that's your interpretation. So is the new covenant here?
No.
Does nobody need to, like, has the new commission been finished?
No, actually. The Seminole
So-
ladies are a big pain in the ass.
Like, this was my thing. I actually got into a fight with it may not have been Bishop Barron himself. It might have been his YouTube crew, but they hid me from their channel because I called him on this, and either he didn't understand or his crew didn't understand. But like, there is nothing more obvious to a Jew than, like, when Christians say silly things like the new covenant in Jeremiah 31 is here. It's like, by what? How do you actually, like, what is your justification to believe that it's here?
Yeah, I think that by the understanding that you've expressed, which is that the covenant is about repentance, I think that this is the same covenant. I think it's the same. I think it's saying, like, oh yeah, you need to repent, and you need to, like, bring your life to God and live your life for God.
No, but it's saying you will no longer, it will be renewed so that it will no longer be necessary. Like,
right, because people won't have to repent, because people will apparently have the entire Torah imprinted on their minds better than any person who's ever lived. Yeah,
that's. I mean,
which is not
I don't see
how
you. Yeah, I don't see how you interpret Jeremiah 31 in a different way.
I think, unfortunately, that a lot of people do take these little verses out of context, and then they define whole, like, weird theologies around it. It's unfortunate. I don't like it, but it happens all the time. It happens all the time.
Well, Christianity. So this is endemic to Christianity. I mean,
Yes,
when you read the Gospels and you read Paul, the Gospels do that. Like, how do you read Isaiah 7 in context and actually believe in the virgin birth? Like, if you actually believe, if you actually believe in that Isaiah 7 is talking about a virgin, and you read the context, then there must have been two virgin births, one during the time of Ahaz and Jesus. So which is it? Was there a virgin birth then or not?
So to me, like, it doesn't have anything much to do with Isaiah. Although this is a question I did want you to ask when you have whatever Muslim guy you're going to have on here, because my understanding is that Muslims also believe in the virgin birth, right? They don't believe Jesus is God, they don't believe any of this stuff, but they believe in the virgin birth, right? They believe specifically that Mary, very saintly woman, gave birth to Jesus, and she hadn't had sex before she gave birth to Jesus. And I wonder what they think it means. I wonder how they feel about it.
So, white Muslim woman says, I thought virgin in the Old Testament meant young woman. That's, well, so the word in Isaiah 7 is Alma. It's not Betula. There is a word for virgin in Hebrew, Betula, which is used to indicate virginity all over the Torah, the Tanakh. But Christian, like, the Christian Bible, and as I understand Muslims, I'm learning a lot more about Islam than I used to know. But as I understand it, they believe that the virginity of Mary was actually a sign to her that her child was, and that is, like, kind of understandable, right? Because it could be a sign to Mary herself that she's having a wondrous child. And I guess if Joseph knew for sure that she didn't have sex with anybody else, it could be a sign to him as well. But it's not something that could be it can't possibly be a public miracle, because, come on, what's the most obvious explanation? She's not a virgin.
Well, is that a public miracle? I don't tend. So you're thinking of, like, a public miracle, like the party in the Red Sea, like, that's obvious, like the thousands of people. Is this the
anything? Okay, Roman. I tell you, I'm going to do a miracle, I'm going to make a virgin woman have a child. How do you know that that's a miracle and not a trick?
Oh,
How do you know that it's not just the fact she's not a virgin?
This has to do with faith. Maybe if I knew the woman's character and all this other stuff and blah blah blah, maybe I could know. But that's still like a certain amount of faith, right? To me, like that's if you're saying like, oh, is it a hyper public? Oh, everybody knew. I'm like, well, no.
Nobody knew.
Nobody knew. Nobody knew, not even herself. I don't know. But
well, let's say herself. But
right?
if it's just for herself, then what's the point?
Well, to me,
so apparently Muslims believe, and they mentioned this the other day when we were talking. Muslims apparently believe that Jesus spoke at the cradle, saying that Mary was a virgin.
So to me, like what the point of the thing, right? The point of a virgin birth is it expresses the idea in Christianity, which is to be born again, which is just the idea of repentance. That's what the idea to me, like that's what it expresses, right? Is this idea of repentance, which yes is a birth, but it's not a birth that has anything to do with like having sex, right? And that's how I think about it. And that's what I think it means. But
why does
Muslims have a different idea about this?
But if Jesus was born of a virgin, doesn't that mean that you can never be like him?
That I can never. Why? Who like? It's because I was born a little different. I can be like him.
A little different. Being born of a virgin is fundamentally like. There's a reason why Christianity adopted the idea of the virgin birth, because there were people who, especially the Romans and the Greeks, who believed that, in Zeus coming and impregnating women, right? And that divine birth and like God like the Holy Spirit impregnating Mary.
So if it was just us, it was just me and just other Christians who believe this, I'd be like, okay. But Muslims also believe this, and they don't believe Jesus is God.
Right. Well, no, I mean, Muslims, ultimately, Islam, I'm pretty sure, and secular scholars agree, Islam came from Christianity.
That it came from some weird, like, Ebionite version, maybe, or something.
Yeah, some version of Christianity.
But they don't believe Jesus is God. Again, like to me, like this is the disconnect here. If you say that, this is just trying to say Jesus is God, and then you're saying like, no, wait, but these guys don't believe Jesus is God, then this seems like it has to be.
They were left with the residue of some residue of Christian beliefs.
Okay.
I think it originated because in Judaism, it makes no sense in Judaism to have such a thing as a virgin birth. Like, what's the point? Like, what does that mean in Judaism? We've never had a concept of a virgin birth in Judaism because we believe that there's something holy about man and wife coming together in the image of God and being and creating. So like, it's not only not a real possibility in Judaism, it's not even something favorable. The idea that somebody would be born of just one sex or the other in Judaism is not good because, like Genesis 1 says, the image of God is masculine and feminine. Like, that is Genesis. That is the Jewish belief that a complete soul is man and wife. So it completely negates this idea of like that it would actually be a good thing for somebody to be born of a virgin, which other religions seem to believe.
So I don't. It'd be weird, right? If like it seemed like my dad would be real disappointed if like he was not my father somehow, right? Like that seems like a sort of sad event, right? Even if it's maybe not sad for the same reasons that it usually happens, right? Like if it was a virgin birth, like this isn't like a happy thing. But like, I think that it means something when it happens.
Would you be happy if your wife had a, like, if you were raising God's bastard?
This is the idea, huh? Would I be happy? I don't know. This is sort of a thought. Would I be happy about it? It's hard to be happy about some of the things God asks us to do, but like, does this definitely changes the context of a lot of things in ways that, in fact, yeah, would be a little sad, right? In some ways, right? Maybe there'd be happy parts too, right? But in fact, there are parts of it that are actually very sad. This is true.
Okay, it is getting late, and these new things I got aren't that comfortable. I just ordered, although I didn't buy it, I just ordered an extension cord. I might have to just go to a Best Buy and buy the extension cord. I'm gonna go see if it's available somewhere. Yeah, but like, I can't keep this up. And it's late. I will talk to you later, Roman. It's always nice of you to show up, by people.
All right.
Did you want to say something before we go?
No, just good night.
Good night. Good night.